Hi and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to be talking about chapter 5 of the book Economyths by David Orrell. In this chapter, Orrell looks at the assumptions that humans are making rational and logical decisions whenever they buy something. And he looks at this and he says that it is incorrect and that a lot of decisions that humans make are driven not by logic and reason, but through emotions. So without further ado, let's get on to the video. So if we look at something that we can all relate to, which is consumer spending, we look at a luxury item versus a budget-friendly item, and how even in a simple purchase like buying a coffee, whether it's a more luxurious coffee or a budget-friendly coffee, emotions will sway the decisions that we make. And Orrell explains that people in these markets are aware that emotions are a really big part of whether or not we buy something, and therefore they use marketing and advertising and specific human psychology tricks to get us into feeling certain ways to buy an object. And therefore it just displays how we are not robotic humans who just do the most logical thing, which would be buying the budget-friendly item. The luxurious item may make us feel a bit better, make us maybe feel like we have more money or look more expensive. And when it comes to coffee, it's not that dramatic. But when it comes to actual luxury goods, such as Ferraris and sports cars or designer handbags and designer products versus normal budget-friendly consumer goods, emotions are a huge part of these things, and people will spend a lot of money to feel a certain way. And Orrell looks at how this is such an important part of the markets and how we are so much more than just people who are programmed to do the most logical thing. So much of what we do is driven through emotions, and markets exploit that. So Orrell here shows how products are bought not only for their utility but also for their emotional value. Now, if we were to look over at the more financial markets, we can see how emotions are also involved in the big financial stocks and shares and financial markets. And so, for example, he says at the start of the chapter that most economic crashes have happened during October. This can just display right there how the month of the year, because it's a much more depressing month, I suppose, and because we're starting to get into winter and the depth of autumn, that then influences people and then results in financial problems and financial crashes, because they might be feeling more apprehensive or more nervous, but sadder possibly because the weather is more depressing, and then that then influences how the market acts. This is really interesting to me because a lot of economics believes that human is a rational being, and there are a lot of assumptions that assume that we are our own individual entity. We aren't affected by others, aren't affected by our environment or the surroundings, but we have a goal and we work towards that goal. And this is called actually neoclassical economics. It's spoken about more in the earlier chapters of this book. So if you'd like to find out more about that, then you can watch chapters 1 or 2, which will be linked up here somewhere or down the description below. So what Orrell then basically says is that our emotions influence the financial market so much. A lot of fear or excitement can then result in the market fluctuating and lots of booms and busts. So the dot-com bubble, for example, was an example of when a lot of people had this fear of missing out on this great technology boom. They all started buying shares and bubbles started to form because the value of these shares were overinflated. When this bubble eventually pops, people then get really scared and sell off all their shares and everything crashes. Same with the financial crash of 2008. So during the dot-com bubble, investors poured in investments into tech stocks because of the fear of missing out on this new tech wave that was happening. And the same with the financial crisis of 2008, but except people were putting in money into the housing market. When both of those bubbles crashed or popped, then people were losing tons of money and it resulted in a financial crisis. And this is the idea of the herd mentality and the fact that people have a fear of missing out. So during 2008, people had a fear of missing out on the housing and the housing prices, whereas during the dot-com bubble, people were so scared of missing out on the tech stocks. This then resulted in a crisis and people losing a lot more money. Orrell also says how it wasn't just individual investors that become part of this herd mentality, but bigger investing funds such as hedge funds are also not immune to this herd mentality, and they'll also invest in these things that everyone else is investing in, and this results in the entire economy crashing rather than just individuals losing a lot of money. So in conclusion, what Orrell is saying is that instead of creating new models or trying to look more into these past models that traditional economists have made and neoclassical economists have made, we should start trying to make these models more robust and try and start understanding the economy more. Because if we understand that emotions are such a huge part of everyday life, such a huge part of not just consumer goods, but financial markets and what is bought, what is sold, it's such a huge part of the economy as a whole, that we should be looking and making more financial models that involve human emotion somehow, or at least try and make it more robust, rather than creating and looking at these neoclassical traditional ideas that have been created by economists long ago. So that brings us to the end of this video. Next week I will be coming out with chapter 6, and I will be continuing to post more videos on the chapters of this book. I've linked it down in the description below if you would be interested in reading it, and if you have any comments or anything you'd like to add, please do so down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching.